starting here in a second. There we go. Before he starts speaking, I just want to do a little introduction about Ben Muldrow here, specifically Arnett Muldrow. Arnett Muldrow. So they are based out of Greenville, South Carolina. However, you would not think as much, considering how much work they do out of Virginia. So I guess they have a little bit of a residency here. But a lot of you tend to know them as well. So they help with a lot of place branding, wayfinding, community planning, and economic development. So this session is going to be dedicated to making sure that you know how to promote your Main Street organizations, and then also being able to market your district as well. But I do not want to speak too much on behalf of Ben Muldrow. So Ben, why don't you take it away, and I will shut up.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for the intro, and thanks everybody for coming on today. This is hopefully this is going to be a fun interactive session with you all. We called it Brand Camp. I think at the end of the day, we want to get some additional tools in everybody's hands to help you to effectively and efficiently communicate. And it's a hard job in the Main Street world. And so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to cover a little bit of like background communication theory in terms of the things we need to do when we're talking about Main Street and how we share Main Street. And then I'm going to roll into a whole host of tools and templates that we've developed over the years that might scratch an itch that you have. It might have, you might have a certain challenge. Some of these are directly in response to some of the recent work that we've been doing with some of our advancing communities. In fact, I saw Charlotte Cole joined on. One of the sections today is directly in response to an email that I got from her last week about annual reports and things like that. So we're going to just kind of get in and dig through that. I always tell folks I've got 5 kids, so I am very used to being interrupted. So if you have a question along the way, feel free to unmute and hop in there. Or if you want to jump in the chat section, I'll try my best to kind of keep my eyes looking over there. Oh, I see Joel says, hey, Joel, what's up? And yeah, let's dig in and start talking a little bit about this. So let me share my slides. And perfect. All right. Now that I'm sharing, I have to make sure that my window is up so I can see. Kelvin, can you help on chat? Just make sure if I don't see it and there's somebody asking something, feel free to interrupt.
Absolutely.
So with this, I think one of the biggest things that I think is important to start with in the world of Main Street marketing, branding, and communication is this idea that we're really managing 2 different concepts simultaneously. And the thing that when people hear marketing and branding, first of all, they automatically drop it into the promotion point. And then they automatically think of kind of external communication. So they're thinking about the things that we're doing to market the district, the shopping and dining guides, all that kind of stuff. And the thing that we really oftentimes, I'm not going to say we ignore, but we are not great at advocating for ourselves. And honestly, part of it goes all the way back to the whole creation of the identity around the Main Street movement. And I always kind of say we maybe tried to make the identity of this movement do too many things. And while we are simultaneously creating this organization and building capacity and moving and kind of shaping the economy of our districts, we're also trying to market that place. And can we or should we be doing that all with the singular identity? So we're going to kind of unpack that as we talk today. I think one of the first things that I landed on is this idea, and I call it the main 5. But what I've come to understand is essentially every single downtown development organization out there is kind of sharing the same five audiences, and we'll get there and kind of talk through that. But I think one of the biggest things that I was hit with was this idea of, what is this backstory? What is our origin story? And in the 70s, all across the country, we had communities that were creating and adopting urban renewal authorities. We were seeing this mindset of demolish everything we had and build new. And that was our strategic like way to combat suburbanization and the people that are taking investment outside of our city cores and developing, in our suburban corridors. So this idea of okay, we're watching our history and our character be leveled, but we have an economy that is doesn't warrant the investment that it takes to preserve these buildings. So how do we do that? How do we talk about that? So that was the challenge that the National Trust had. They had building owners, and they were trying to motivate the building owners to invest in their properties and have preserved buildings. That was the desired byproduct. And the thing that they realized was when you lacked that strong economy, that meant you lacked the investor confidence. So you could never achieve your goal. And one day, I mean, the mythology is fantastic. Sometimes the story includes a snowstorm. Sometimes it includes multiple bottles of whiskey. I oftentimes hear that people said that they felt like a 3-point approach was too simple and a 5-point approach nobody could ever remember. But they landed on this 4-point approach, this organization capacity development, this promotion, marketing, vibrancy, this design beautification, this economic development, economic restructuring, economic vitality, and business solutions. And what they did was they figured out ways that this grassroots organization could stimulate and create a stable economy that could justify that private sector investment. And when you really sit there and you kind of take that in, it's like, oh, we accidentally invented holistic economic development. And this is kind of a way that I have started to refer to the Main Street movement. I mean, we truly are pioneers of economic development. If you look at the terminology of economic development and you look at how rarely it was used pre-1977 and how much it began to be used post-1977, it marked this major transition from a almost purely industrial recruitment strategy into a more holistic economic development strategy, and we're at the forefront of that. And I don't think we give ourselves that credit sometimes because we oftentimes get known as the festival people. It's hard to wear that economic development hat when you're also the one that's lugging around the garbage bags at the end of an event. So, that has always been one of our challenges. And that's one of the things that we have to think about as we try to communicate about Main Street. And this idea of how do we describe Main Street, and very, very rarely are you going to hear somebody and if you're a director, you probably get asked this every week. What is Main Street? And, you probably use the word revitalization. You probably use the word economic development or something in there. But there are a couple things that I want to kind of point out. One of the things that is not a good describer of what it is we actually do to human beings is the mission statements. Mission statements are important tools. They're important for us to have. Those are internal documents. Those help to guide our own internal decisions. And when your board spends 4 hours hashing through every single word and it feels like you have birthed the baby, it makes complete and total sense that at the end of that, you want to share that with everybody. But this isn't really doing it. To advocate, educate, and collaborate for the revitalization and enhancement of downtown Waterbury by adhering to the Main Street programs, 4-point approach. It's like, okay, I get it, but I'm not excited after I read that. And then when you go from program to program, you see like they spend hours and hours drafting documents that are real similar to one another. We're all in the Main Street world, and guess what? Our mission and our vision is pretty much the same. Our vision is for our downtown to be the heart of our community and to be the thing that plants the seed for passionate connections that will drive investment from years to come. And our mission is to attack that from every angle and create people who love and are passionate about their place. So we've created this defining mission and vision guide. It's part of the Main Street Solution Center. I'm going to talk about that more today. But this hopefully will make that task a little easier if anybody is out there struggling with that. I don't think that you necessarily need to dedicate 60 or 80 hours worth of volunteer time to tweak your vision and mission statement. But I think we do need to turn that corner and start to ask ourselves, what is that elevator speech? And how do we lead with the why? And if you've ever read or heard of Simon Sinek, he wrote this great book called It Starts With Why. And the thing that this really impresses on us is this idea that we have decided that numbers are more important than emotions. We've decided that statistics are more important than quotes. We've decided that that things that sound very, very legitimate are more important than feelings. And the thing that is actually interesting is the moment you lead with statistics, you trigger the analytical, skeptical mind. So I'm sure that we've all seen the reinvestment stats that have been shared. It's like X million dollars in private sector investment, Y number of jobs created. And ultimately, anytime you do that, there's somebody in the audience like, I wonder where they got those numbers from. This idea of starting with why is it creates that emotional connection that allows the additional information to be received. I'll give you a couple examples that are kind of prevalent in the Main Street world. So, what is it that we're trying to accomplish? We're trying to preserve buildings. How are some of the ways that we're doing that? Well, one of those might be through a facade grant program. But why? Why do we do that? Because there is no other place on the entire planet that has the unique collection of architecture and buildings and backstories as Buena Vista, Virginia. And that is our DNA. That is the thing that makes us different from anywhere else. And while traditional economic development and traditional, like big box or chain retail recruitment, that investment is trying to make your place look, smell, taste, and feel like every other place, it is only your downtown and your character districts that are dedicated to preserving your uniqueness of place. And we don't start with that, but we should. That's the thing that our own leaders and the people that carry the purses should be considerate of, is this idea of we want to make sure that when people choose us, whether they're choosing to invest or to live or to be a part of or start a business or take a risk, that they are actually, that connection is real, because there's something about the character of this community that just, it draws me in. Similar dynamic, what do we do? We want to create vibrancy. Well, how do we do that? Through a series of oftentimes too many events, or events that we wish we didn't have to run all of, but still events. Why do we do that? Why do we do events? Believe it or not, their fun is not a justifiable strategy. But why we do this, and I love these anecdotes. I was working in Mississippi this week, and there was a community that had this amazing story about a person who was from, an hour away. They came into town for a Christmas event. They went into a couple of businesses. They had this unbelievable experience with one of the business owners. And next thing you know, they were like, I want to be a part of this. And they sold their house, they moved to the community, they bought a downtown building, they moved upstairs, and they opened a business. And there was this interaction that was created because of the type of events that we had, that cultivated the next round of stakeholders. And every event might not have that why, but making memories and making people love your downtown, that might be a why. You might go through and you might want to create an event because you don't have enough downtown housing, and your why might be, hey, when this downtown was formed, those people that lived above the stores owned the building and ran the stores. And we want there to be a stronger connection because we believe when people live downtown, work downtown, then they create a far more holistic economy. So just thinking through and giving yourself permission to start with the why. There's this idea of going through. I'm going to share this little PDF of this why exercise. This is a good thing to have on hand anytime your organization is thinking about starting a new initiative. If nothing else, those why statements are going to empower your board to be able to better talk about why you're going down this road. And anytime we deliberately have those conversations, we start to arm our board members with the opportunity to be amplifiers for our efforts instead of just always depending on our director to be the only voice. We need choruses, not soloists. So, going through that, and I'll share that PDF with you all so y'all could do that. Take 5 minutes, when you're going through and kicking something off, and give people the opportunity to kind of explore their own why statement. And just remember, the order does matter. You should start with why. Start with emotions before data. That will make the connection. That will open the door for true communication. And this next, it's a quote I love. Just remember, no one ever marched on Washington because of a pie chart. And that is so very true. Like it is, you are part of a movement. You are part of a fundamental economic transition where you are shaping market trends, you are shaping and changing and molding consumer behavior, you are cultivating a next wave of investors and economies, and truly creating, hopefully, ongoing generational community wealth. And there's a lot of emotion connect to that. So give yourself permission, give your board commission to tap into that and use that for your storytelling. I'm also going to share this with you. This is kind of a fun little, I'm a child of the 80s, so I always loved Mad Libs. So we have this little Main Street Mad Lib. And this is, instead of forcing your board members to memorize a mission or vision statement, this is an opportunity for them to essentially create their own customized elevator speech. We are Old Town Covington, and we believe in the true value of a strong heart in downtown Covington. Every day we activate our downtown on behalf of all of the people of our region, or the Alleghenies or whatever. And it's a very simple exercise, but it acknowledges this idea that when you sit around the table and you have this board of volunteers, it is okay for every one of them to have a slightly different motivation as to what brought them to the table. And if you empower those individual motivations, then you're going to start to create a more dynamic conversation happening about who you are and what you're trying to accomplish in the community. And then the other thing to remember is that we are not our audience. We use a lot of terms, a lot of buzzwords in the Main Street world that our audience does not understand. They don't know what a facade is. They don't. We get into they might not know what dhcd is. They don't know the 4 points. They don't have that tattoo. So like going through and always remembering that if people don't know what Main Street is, we're probably not communicating right about it. And this idea of grassroots economic development that leverages the character of our community to unleash our future. That's a really, really great way to take it and run with it. So with that main five that I mentioned, every single Main Street organization at some point is kind of thinking about owners, donors, the public, volunteers, and government. And I want to kind of go through each of these real quick and just spend a second on each of these. So with our donors help us to exist, but we don't want it to be charity. We want it to be earned. Businesses investing in our organization, gaining exposure, leaving a legacy, and supporting the place they call home. We want to be the organization known for getting things done and a movement worth investing in. So this idea of Main Street not being a charity, that is a really, really big thing to make sure that you kind of push out to that forefront. This idea of, you know, when you invest in us, we're doing something big. I think the latest numbers that National likes to share is that for every dollar invested in Main Street, we see something like a $26 multiplier. I mean, there is no other economic development investment in the country that sees that kind of return. So when we walk in and we kind of wring our hands and we're like, "Oh, we'd really love for you to give $500," and it's like, or 5,000, because you're part of an economy, and this is the thing that makes that economy different. In that donor category, I always like to put together kind of a "we believe" statement. So we believe that Main Street's a wise investment. We believe that this is a smart way to build your business. We believe that Main Street can help leave a legacy. We believe that Main Street is an efficient way to advertise, and we believe that supporting grassroots economic development makes your support of your community apparent. So, that's just some things to think about as you're going through, whether you're thinking about sponsorships, whether you're thinking about a donor drive, whether you're having some sort of investor campaign or member campaign, or however you might tackle that. Being able to really, really think through that interaction. And one of the biggest things that I always have to remind you of here is that is not a relationship that stops once the check gets cut. So thinking through all of the things that you do as an organization, manifesting that vibrancy and that connection with place, and being able to give opportunities for your donors to truly experience that. That is so unbelievably important. I was in a community this week, Cleveland, Mississippi, that they do this amazing thing where literally they have a VIP program that runs through every single one of their events, whether their event is a sponsorable event, a free event, a paid event, whatever. They have a small, thoughtful interaction that is available to all sponsors every single time they do event. And that just really hit me. I thought that was really cool. Next up, our owners. Now, if you have ever had a conversation with a downtown business owner, you know how delightful that can be on days. My wife and I owned a retail right in our downtown on our main street. We were not always happy to see people come through the door. We certainly had those days where, we were asked for soccer donations and lacrosse donations and cheerleading donations and Main Street donations and chamber donations, all on the same day from people who had never stepped foot in the store before. So we understand that. But in this realm, it's not just our business owners, it's our property owners, which oftentimes are different people. It's our prospects, it's our developers. These are the ones who have the highest level of risk. They are most financially intertwined with our work. And that's part of the reason that they can be testy sometimes. But I think one of the biggest things I always try to remind our Main Street organizations about is the owners are putting on a major event each and every day, and they're doing it on their own dime. So when you sit there and you think about the fact that you're serving this district, it might make sense that, oh yeah, I need to have the business owners, like, they need to be doing all this work and they need to be doing all that work. Well, believe it or not, running that business is also a full-time job. So, being super thoughtful and considerate of the role that your downtown stakeholders should play, and then the role that you should kind of put on yourself to recruit people from outside so that you can kind of spread that workload. One of the things you want to make sure that your owners are involved in is the design, creation, and implementation of retail oriented promotions. They're the ones that understand how to get the customers in and the customers to spend. I can't tell you how many times our main streets will create a program that they call a retail promotion and they don't even talk to the retailers first. So thinking through that and involving them requires kind of building and maintaining that level of communication. Why is Main Street important to these owners? We believe that business owners should prosper. We believe customers will love our district. We believe that our buildings deserve love, and we build the economy that supports that love. We believe profit is good. I know that sounds dumb, but it's funny how we oftentimes will villainize a business owner trying to profit from something. And we believe that loyalty comes from experiences. Next up, we've got our public. The public are our customers, our event goers, our guests. They're the ones who make the market viable. They're the ones who support small business. They're economy builders. The loyal ones return time and time again. And at Main Street, we help people fall in love with their community. And we believe that people want to feel special. We believe that events create memories. We believe that traditions are born downtown. We believe that our origin story is important, and we believe that downtown is how people become connected to their community. Volunteers are our lifeblood. They keep us connected. They power us. We're the thinkers and we're the doers, the crafters of vibrancy and the stewards of history. Our movement is grassroots and our neighbors are our partners. Now, I've never met a Main Street organization or director that said that they had enough volunteers. But I, I, I want you to give yourself permission to start to talk about that a little bit differently. Um, you have the strategists, you have the people who come up with the ideas, who help to craft the plan, who work through the work planning process, who provide the leadership and guidance. And honestly, you don't need a ton of those people. One of the worst habits in the Main Street world is if a volunteer signs up to work a beer truck from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. and they're actually there at 1 p.m., we invite them to be a board member. We've got to give ourselves permission to protect our strategists from getting burnout from our worker bees. We need to understand that if we do events and those events require a high level of work to accomplish those, all of that does not have to be done for free. And if we have certain tasks that we really don't want to ask volunteers to do because it's never fun doing that task, it is okay to make that a cost of the event. And if that changes the dynamic and makes the event not make financial sense anymore, so be it. But it is way more important to protect the kind of shared organizational knowledge than it is for you to put on a festival every month. So thinking about the volunteers in a slightly different way, think of them as, sometimes you've got specialists, sometimes you've got thinkers, sometimes you've got people that are, this person's just they're our graphic designer. They help us out with our marketing.
Real estate and coastal shore vacation, they're both going to sponsor 1,000.
Okay, that wasn't a question. Sorry. So going through and just kind of making sure, I always tell folks, as a designer, sometimes when I volunteer for an organization, I want to give them professional work for free. Like that's what I'm kind of signing up for. Other times, I want to do something that has nothing to do with that. You know, I like working on events at times. So give your volunteers that opportunity to kind of identify what role they want to be and where they want to land. Um, we believe that with Main Street, you can make a difference. We believe that you will feel part of something bigger. We believe Main Street is fun and rewarding. And guess what? If it's not fun, we need to think about that. And we believe that Main Street can be a safe place to make change. Now, think about that last phrase, a safe place to make change. I don't know what the political climate might be in your community right now, but in some communities, the idea of running for office to be a change maker, it's like, yeah, that's a quick no. There are fewer and fewer people that seem to be drawn to that calling. But the Main Street organization offers an opportunity to make true, impactful, generational change without having to be in that same level of kind of political sides. And that is something that is kind of beautiful about this grassroots effort. And then that last section, our government. Our elected officials and city staff are some of our greatest partners. Main Street presents the beautiful opportunity to be involved in the future of the community in a non-political fashion while communicating to the constituents and making them love their place. Jobs, tax base, private sector investment, small business support, Main Street offers it all. Um, some of you that are advancing communities, you are technically city staff members. The beautiful thing about Main Street is it provides this a little bit of this safe haven where you might be able to cultivate donations, you might be able to get volunteers, but you create just enough of a gap so that there's not this perception that the same organization that is passing taxes and maybe picking our garbage up late is also asking for all these donations and wants us to work festivals. So in this realm, you know, from a Main Street standpoint, we believe that Main Street are those pioneers of economic development. We believe growing tax base and growing jobs starts at the heart. We believe Main Street makes the government's job easier, and we believe Main Street is the most effective way to leverage financial improvement. So that kind of gives us the walkthrough of that main five. Some of you that have recently been going through the branding technical services, one of the tools that is in there, and I will put this in the kind of resource folder with everything else. This is called a communications matrix. It simply brings in some of the different channels or avenues you might think of to communicate. It kind of goes through and helps you to identify, would this channel be relevant to the 4 points? Would this be a channel that our board would want to use to communicate? How frequently should we be communicating there? And then what audiences are we hitting with that? I want you to start thinking, when you think about those 5 major audiences, when you have avenues of communication that hit multiple audiences with one effort, that means it's efficient communication. We want you to do that more and more and more. You don't have time to go out there and do super specialized things. So when you can have, you know, one stone kill multiple birds, let's do it. With that leads into this impact templates, and this kind of ties in with Charlotte, your email last week. One of the first things that I want to share is what it's a tool we created for Michigan. It's now been adopted by, I think, 6 different states are using this template format as their Main Street program annual report for any program that needs help with that. As you know, anything that the state funds, they love acronyms, so they came up with information marketing, placemaking, and communication tool. Isn't that clever? At the end of the day, what we really wanted is we wanted the Swiss Army knife communication tool that performed a lot of different functions in one single format. So I'm going to share a Canva link with a template that looks kind of like this. It's a 4-page template. It is intended to be updated once a year. We actually had a whole goal of, we wanted this to take no more than 4 hours the first time it was created to gather all the content, and less than an hour to update the template. And then year over year, We are 6 years into this in Michigan, and the programs are reporting that it takes them less than an hour a year to update it. So they're able to update their annual report, change up some of their numbers, pull some of their data from some of their sources, and go straight to town with it. But on this cover, we've got a big dominant photo section. We have an opportunity to introduce, a Main Street brand, a destination brand, talk a little bit about that overarching, mission, vision, goal. What are some of the things that we're trying to accomplish, but do that in a narrative way. I give you permission to use AI to help write that. It is okay. Sometimes what you can do is you can take your mission and vision and put it in there and say, could you rewrite this so a normal person would understand what we're trying to say? And it's interesting in the way that it changes tone and changes some of the words. There's also kind of a quick strike. We're matching together some of our aspirations of what we want to do with some of those numbers and statistics right there on the front page. Then we move into a center spread. The center spread shares a lot of different opportunities. We've got an opportunity to highlight transformation strategies and some of the things that we might be doing to transform the economy of our downtown. We've got some reinvestment stats areas, but then we also have things like opportunities to do pull quotes. Let's go out and get a pull quote from a downtown business owner. Let's spotlight one of our volunteers and talk a little bit about what they're doing. Let's have an area to highlight one of the projects that we've accomplished this year. And then just have some of our overall stats, our social media reach, and some of those numbers that we track for monthly and annual reporting, and just kind of put those into the place. One of the things that they wanted is in this bottom right hand corner. It's called In the Numbers. This is just a little bit of organizational transparency. This is some of our income and expense data, so that we have some of our economics and our numbers out there in public. And then the final section, I've kind of tweaked it for the template that you have, but it has an opportunity to highlight more of your overarching kind of event impact. So it's kind of a gallery of events and people and faces, but then it has some of those impacts on maybe estimated event attendance over the course of the year, or estimated visitor impact, or things like that. This is a very, very simple document. Once you do it the first time, it's very, very easy to update, but because the way it's formatted with that big dominant photo on the front cover, it makes it easy for you to see that it's changed year over year. There's plenty of opportunity through color backgrounds and everything to have a really, really nice way to integrate your own brand identity. And depending on how time goes, I want to give an opportunity to kind of share some of the Canva stuff as well. But if you've got a Canva brand kit set up, this is super easy to take and run with. The next one, this is a series of one-page templates, literal one-pagers. I love this one. It's called Who is Main Street? This is, couple great dominant photos. Literally, the only thing that you really have to change on this is a couple of specific numbers, and then change out some logos and colors, and you're good to go. I wanted to challenge myself to write a description of a Main Street organization without talking about four-point approach at all. We almost use that as a communication crutch sometimes, thinking that it makes it clearer. And I've just found that I'm not sure that it does always. So this is a great tool for a one-pager. What you're going to start to see with some of these one-pagers, they're all horizontally organized. They're designed in the format where you can print them out on an 8.5 by 11, or you can create a 4x3 PowerPoint presentation with them. So this could operate as a really, really great single slide. From there, with each one of these, we have kind of a prep sheet that highlights these are the photos you need to change, these are the graphics you need to change, and this is the data you need to look and update. Next up, Main Street Alive. This is an event highlight series. So sharing event logos, sharing some of the things that you do, and just a little bit of splash of the events and the vibrancy that you bring. You have an opportunity for a big pull quote there. And again, with that, the kind of decode sheet for you to know how to use it. Main Street by the numbers. This is a little bit more of an economic stats, reinvestment stats. So goes a little bit deeper into some of our, whether we're looking at leakage numbers, some of the data that we can get from the state, community profile and demographic information, and then some of the programs that maybe we're working on. And again, with that, shows you the content that you need to update, the numbers you need to change, photos you can change out, and then your logos. This is We Are Main Street. This is simply a face-driven kind of, this is our board. We want to humanize this organization by making sure that we're sharing the faces that are coming together to kind of make this change. That's pretty self-explanatory. Why Main Street? This is a little bit more of this kind of impact, and these are the things that we do. This is a little bit more targeted on the power of a volunteer. So we love this idea of being able to do kind of a focus on highlighting a volunteer and then highlighting something that was started and finished. And then the final is actually a planning one, and we love this idea of this. We call it the layered approach to planning, where that vision is that overarching goal. The mission is how we plan to get there. The Main Street strategy or transformation strategy, those are the things that are kind of the themes that are pulling our efforts together. Then, with every effort that we design, that we want to put that through that 4-point filter to make sure that we are doing things that are holistically changing the economy. What are some of our cool ideas or our fun ideas for the year? And then it gets down to that individual action plan. And with that philosophy, you can very quickly update this one-page plan. So this is where you share that mission, share the vision, share your transformation strategies, have that 4-point approach, and then talk about 1 or 2 projects that are going to happen in the near time where people can see that change happening. And then on the backside of that, there is also a little bit more detail of the transformation strategies if you want to go that deep. So, if you have kind of a defined goal to make the community more family friendly, what are we going to do in each one of those points to help transform that? And then another tool that we're going to make sure that everybody has is access to the Solution Center. Solution Center is a pretty cool set of resources. I'm going to go through this super quick so that we've got about at least 8 minutes or so for questions at the end. But what this is right now, this is a collection of about 40 different resource guides that are directed for Main Street organizations. There are a lot of collected resources out there. Every state has their own resource library, but they kind of look like our kitchen junk drawer. Anytime we find anything good that might be useful ever, we throw it in there. The Solution Center has a much more curated and kind of organized approach. We have a comprehensive catalog that details all the elements that are in there. We have a scorecard that you can go through and kind of score your own current capacity and start to identify where you might need to draw resources to get a little better in a certain area. We also have this guide with different pathways to your solution, and we've got a full set of digital assets that currently can be accessed through MainStreetSolutionCenter.com, but they're all housed in the Michigan program, and so that we can have a little bit more organized, a little bit more efficient set of resources. In these, we've got these 8 categories: preservation, place, events, marketing, capacity, people, real estate, and business. I think that these pretty much make sense. I'm going to go through this quick so you can spend a little bit more time with the PDF. But with each one of these categories, I think it's probably more helpful for you to see what guides exist in each of those sections. So you go through, you can use this scorecard. It has a section by section kind of set of questions where it asks, do you feel comfortable with this? Would you classify yourself as starting, evolving, or excelling in this category? And then kind of dropping this in and giving yourself the points. And this is a cumulative scorecard for all of those areas with the different pathways of accessing the data. One is using the scorecard to evaluate the needs. The second is you already have an identified area you need help. You just go straight to the section. The third is you're hunting for a specific, resource, and it's like, I need information on upper floor housing. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to look in those areas and land on that specific data. In the catalog itself, it walks us through, and In the business area, we've got 8 different guides: hosting a meeting for business owners, business development incentives, intro to business succession, hosting a business pitch competition, planning for business expansion, micro retail on Main Street, supporting entrepreneurs, supporting business startups. One of the things that is great about a tool like this is simply by having access to the resources, it gives you the opportunity to have conversations that you might not necessarily know how to have other ways. Like, for example, succession planning. It's kind of hard to walk into a business and say, it looks like you're getting old. You should be thinking about what's going to happen when you want to retire. But instead, you can simply walk in and say, hey, every month or so, we get our hands on some new resources from our state organization and our national organization. The one that I was looking at this month is succession planning, so I wanted to leave this behind for you. And act like you're giving it to everybody, but it starts to plant that seed and allows you to get information without implying anything, I guess. Same thing with buildings that are having issues. In our real estate category, we've got the cost of an empty building. We've got guide to downtown housing, building improvement incentives, an owner's guide to building facades, which is kind of an interesting take because a lot of times that's a little bit more from a design and preservation side. This is an owner perspective. We have a really great guide called Planning for Downtowns, filling vacancies, working with property owners, and business meetings for property owners. In our events section, planning and promoting extended hours, evaluating your events, hidden, how to kill events if you need to kill events, best practices for retail events, a guide to a single ask sponsorship campaign, and an overall guide with strategic events. That strategic events guide has a fantastic one-pager decision tree. So anytime somebody comes to you and say, I got an idea for a great event, you can send them to that one-page PDF and say, hey, walk through this so that you can tell us why this event's going to be strategic and what it's going to do in our district. Marketing, branding guide, marketing, organization, destination marketing, downtown district directories, designing a marketing plan, downtown and district itineraries, a guide for social media, a guide for websites. In our preservation area, there's a ton of pre-existing preservation stuff. So we've got a guide to design guidelines for our downtowns. In our place, we've got a cleanup and maintenance manual. We've got plans and strategies for public art. We've also included a new signs, all about signs. In capacity, we've got a fantastic guide to fundraising that ended up being a huge document. So if you feel like maybe you don't have enough money, that might be a good one for you to take a look at. And then we've got our people section, everything from sample agendas, sample bylaws, annual commitment letters, executive director job descriptions, mission and vision statements, and executive director evaluations. So you can see there's a ton of stuff in there, and we're going to make sure that you've got access to all of that right there at your disposal. And from that, I want to, we've got a couple of minutes left. I'd love to open it up for questions, anything that you want me to go a little bit deeper in, or anything I can answer for you guys. Thanks, Jeremy. Have fun at the Cash Mob.
I'm so giddy. This is outstanding. I guess that's my only question is I can't wait to, I might have some follow-ups on, how to customize it, but I bet it's pretty outlined. It seemed like how to customize everything.
Yes. And the nice thing is, I will say, from the customization, all of the Canva stuff, it's right there. The document that I'll be sharing with you has a link that you can just click on or copy that will take you straight to a template link. So it'll let you immediately start applying your brand kit and that kind of thing. The Main Street Solution Center stuff, we went through and we asked ourselves, like, how do we want this to be packaged? Is this the kind of thing that we feel like we need to have local programs be able to skin it or kind of, rebrand it, versus going through and having more of this like universal brand. And because of some of those hard conversations that it might actually help seed, we actually felt like it was kind of good to scapegoat that to a certain degree, where it's like we don't want some of those to look too much like us, if that makes sense, where it's like the cost of an empty building. If you're trying to get a building owner that's maybe dragging their feet a little to do some work, or you're trying to get a old school business owner who you'd really love for them to consider selling the business instead of just closing it when they're done. You a little bit of that scapegoat. But as far as the Canva template stuff, I think you'll find the getting in there and changing it up super easy. But if you guys have any questions on that, I think that I'm more than available to help. One other thing that I do want to kind of throw out there, and Kelvin and I talked about it before the meeting, but we want to get all this stuff in your hands. We want to share it with you all. And if it's okay with Courtney, I would be more than happy for us to almost offer like let's get back together once you've seen all these templates, and maybe once we get to the first quarter. A lot of times there's a lot of year work planning and communication planning that happens in our January and February, and I'd love to get back with you all and just offer an opportunity for you to ask additional questions, maybe to generate some additional tools or templates that would help you to accomplish your goals, and then just help to continue fill in some of those gaps. Because I just believe that oftentimes you're not having the conversation for the first time. Other programs have already had to have this, and we need to quit forcing the directors to reinvent the wheel every single time, and be able to tap into some of those learned efficiencies of this is a really, really good way. And Courtney confirmed February 2026. So we'll do another one of these where we can get back together. Y'all can ask additional questions, and hopefully I will tell you one of the things I'll be able to share with you all by then is next week I'm spending the week in Iowa, and we're doing a really cool session with all of their directors called Writing the Book on Vacancy. And we're going to hit everything from we're going to hit vacancy from all 4 points. We're going to create a guidebook for directors on how to tour a vacant property. What information do you need to know? How do you use your market data to connect available? Like, we're going to try to make that as easy as possible. So I'm excited to share that with you all as well. But any other questions? We got about 3 more minutes, and I know a lot of people are having to crank out for lunch and for events going on in their communities. All right. Well, y'all, it's always a pleasure to see everybody and talk with you. And I'm excited to get this stuff in your hands. I've got the Word document put together. I'm gonna go and grab a haircut because I've been gone for what feels like 6 weeks. And then when I get back, I'm gonna pull together the final PDFs and drop it into Google Drive. And I will share that link with Kelvin, and he'll share it with all of you guys probably or early next week, I'm guessing. So we'll make sure that we get it in your hands. And if you have any questions, reach out. We're more than happy to help.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Ben. It was great to see you.
Good to see you guys too. All right.
Peace
Have a
out,
good
everybody.
weekend. Thanks for your help,
Bye.
Kelvin.
Yeah,
We'll talk soon.
for sure.
Okay.
All right.
Alrighty.
See you later.
Bye.